Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Matthew Pillmore here, your cash flow coach. Very interesting point to consider here today. I was recently sitting down with a very close friend of mine who's also a veteran and a pilot for a major airline, and he taught me something that is fundamental to you, and it's also fundamental to aircraft motion, and it's used to change the direction of the plane. And ironically, I later discovered that this is actually called the banking turn, which is interesting in and of itself. But the banking turn essentially illustrates how much even the smallest misdirection can affect everything. And we're going to talk about that today. Now, before we do, I want to remind you guys that we're going to be giving away a $25 Amazon gift card by the end of today's topic. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video. I also want to point out that we recently released a video talking about Dan Locke's formula for how the wealthy create and manage a budget. And I gave you all the specifics behind it. It's extremely important to be following those closely. And when you do, you get to benefit from situations like this. Recently got back from Hawaii, and we were able to generate somewhere, we haven't run the final total yet, but it looks like it's going to be somewhere around $130,000, $135,000 generated while on vacation. Okay. I was busy getting engaged, and we were generating high levels of income from free and clear assets. So make sure you check out that video, very important. Now, as you listen to the following dramatic statistics, I want you to remember to relate these statistics to your personal financial progress, wherever you're starting out today. For every single degree that an airplane flies off of course, that airplane will miss its target by 92 feet for each and every mile, which means that for every 60 miles flown, you would miss your target by 1 full mile, which would mean that if you flew from JFK to LAX, you would be roughly 50 miles away from your desired destination. Think about that, 50 miles away with just a 1 degree inaccuracy on your roadmap. Now, flying around the equator, if you went around the entire world, you would land almost 500 miles off course. 500 miles with just a 1 degree misdirection. So the question becomes, what is your tolerance for being off of target, off course? Are you okay with a 1 degree mistake? I mean, at first glance, it might not seem like a big deal, but once you start to see the full possible impact of such an error, you'll probably agree that even a 1 degree mistake is unacceptable. Let's attempt to make a financial comparison in order to put it into context. If you were to critique your own financial, let's call it piloting, and you were being totally honest with yourself, how far off target would you be right now? Let's break it down even further and look at it through just the microscope of cash flow. For instance, let's say that you could climb into a time machine right now and you could go back 10 years ago. If you knew what you know now, don't you think you could make some little adjustments and squeeze, say, at least another 10% of cash flow from your take-home income? Just think about it for a minute. If you had simply purchased just 10% less crap on impulse, or chose, let's say, to get the same things that you get now, but you spend less for it. A very easy example was the Starbucks example I gave earlier this year, where I could otherwise purchase full-priced Starbucks. I could buy the same exact thing in bottle form for half the price and get substantially more of the product. Okay, so it's not about sacrificing and cutting back on things we love. It's about strategizing and getting at least what we were getting before, but spending less for it. It's better planning. I mean, you could easily keep $500 more from a $5,000 take-home amount for the household. You could easily keep an extra $1,000 more from a $10,000 take-home in your household. Let's face it, guys, when you made less than you do today, you found a way to live on that smaller amount. So don't fall victim to what is known as Parkinson's law, which suggests that expenses always rise to meet your income level. This is why some of the brokest coaching members we ever set out to assist were some of the highest earners of our audiences, the doctors and the lawyers, these folks making hundreds of thousands of dollars or even as much as $500,000 a year, spending what they're making, left with little to nothing to show. But saving an extra $500 every month would be a breeze if you had managed your debts totally differently, or if you had decided to buy a rental property when you had the chance. I mean, shoot, you could have saved tens of thousands in school loans by just staying in state instead of getting out-of-state tuition costs. Think about it. How much could you have influenced your future if you could have avoided that very first car payment by spending less, buying a beater and just paying cash for it? Imagine if You knew that there were so many different amazing ways to manage your mortgage better. And instead of taking on a 30-year loan term that you refinanced over and over again, you had instead paid it off in 4 or 5 years. Imagine if your house had been paid off 5 years ago. And what if you took some of that time that you waste each week watching Netflix or sports or playing video games? I mean, what if you invested that time instead? What if you increased your earning power by learning a high income skill and you spent 5 to 10 hours a week focused on it? We just launched a 3-video series about Little Pink Houses of America, and we talk about statistically being able to earn anywhere between $15,000 to $30,000 per month, doing that with about 20 hours worth of work each week. There are no excuses anymore. Having an extra $500 or an extra $1,000 or $2,000 or even $10,000 more in cash flow is easy to do. So it's tough to listen to excuses and reasons and offer a whole lot of sympathy, because there are so many opportunities now that require very little of your time and very little of your money. In some cases, very little credit, and in some cases, very little risk. I mean, a lack of education and aggressive advertising and faulty banking systems and parents that were ignorant, it makes it so easy for us to fall off course by as little as 1 degree. And it's crazy to see that formula is working against us, and it's causing an outcome of outrageous spending. According to the Simple Dollar, the average American now spends $232 per month eating out. And according to BevSpot, which is a cocktail resource, they think that the proper cocktail should be correctly priced right now at between $12.50 and $13. For one drink. If you want to go out with your special somebody and have yourself a glass of wine or a cocktail, that's going to run you $25 plus a tip. You'll spend $30 and you haven't put one bite of food into your mouth. Now, I went through my personal statements from last month because I think I'm a more extreme exception to these numbers, to these averages. And I calculated a whopping $713.91 in food and beverage costs that were spent outside of the home. That's before factoring in what we just spent in Hawaii. That's last month. That's just living every day, living a downtown lifestyle. Now, given I can safely add another 50% to that for business-related meals, I'm personally spending over $1,000 a month towards food and beverage costs outside of my house every month. Crazy. $1,000 a month. If you would have told me that when I was just a young 20-something, I would have had a hard time believing it. I mean, look at the cost of my cell phone, folks. This cell phone right here ran me $1,300. Can you imagine if 10 years ago somebody approached you and warned you that you could spend over $1,000 on a telephone in 1 decade's time? Slap that person right in the face. Now, if I chose to go out just 1/2 of the time and instead just eat and drink at home, I live above a grocery store, an extra $500 would easily find its way into my cash flow. Furthermore, an additional $1,724.37 was calculated of the other expenses on my statement that were a result of literally doing whatever I want to do. And it was totally discretionary. I didn't have any need for that spending. I just wanted it. Those were experiences, those were impulse purchases. That included everything from Airbnb, a retreat we took, to a $150 concert we chose to go to movies and clothes. In total, only $524.67 of the $2,962.95 that went to non-deductible expenses I would consider necessary. And that included utilities and groceries, but it didn't count rent. Don't forget, guys, I prefer to rent where I live and own income producing assets. So I own where I landlord. I rent where I live. A primary residence is a liability. So we choose amenities, which save us a ton of time and a ton of money by having the actual owners of where we live deal with everything we don't want to deal with. Now, there are about $5,000 a month worth of reasons for this, why I rent here versus paying or living where in one of the properties that I own. So make sure you check out the I live in a mansion video. It'll give you more specifics on the breakdown of why I rent where I live, and you guys may find something to consider for yourselves in that. Now, I realize that everybody has a different lifestyle, okay? Spending over $2,500 a month on stuff that I could avoid might seem extreme to one person, and it actually could seem low to a lot of other people. So make sure that you understand the proper spending ratios, and we cut a video that discusses exactly what your spending ratios need to be based on your earning. Now, regardless of your viewpoint, we can agree that there are many, many leaks that could be adjusted in my own plan if I felt like, I was off track from my goals. 10% corrections are conservative and relatively equivalent to 18 degrees off target. If 180 degrees in the wrong direction is the same as doing things 100% wrong when it comes to your money, then given 1 degree of inaccuracy would put you 500 miles away from your target if you flew around the globe. Imagine how far away you are right now from where you want to be heading if you're only falling short by 10%. In this example, we're looking at 18 degrees times 500 miles, which is over 9,000 miles off course if you're just 10% off right now. So what I want to do is just spend a few minutes to hypothesize and dive straight into the numbers. All right, guys, so I wanted to take a real quick look at the numbers. This is always the most fun, I think, in quantifying the value of efforts. And when we talk about Dan Locke's road to wealth and how the rich actually manage their budget, I mean, we still budget, folks, all right? We don't just take everything we earn if we want to stay wealthy and spend it on things that are frivolous. We actually have to put a plan into action. And so not only are we building these high income skills and we're developing those into scalable businesses and then taking that money that we're earning and saving specific percentages of it, but we're also increasing the savings every year. And we're increasing the percentage that we're saving from what we are earning. And I want to run some of those hypothetical numbers here into this compound interest calculator so you guys can see the long-term impact of staying disciplined and consistent with this. Now, the first thing we talked about was if you make less than $50,000 per year, you should be saving 10%, which if you're saving 10%, or if you just fine tune your existing cash flow objectives in order to realize an extra $5,000 per year or about $400 per month, let's go ahead and plug that here into this calculator, whereby we're going to start with a zero current principal balance. This is if you were starting from nothing and you're making less than $50,000 per year. You're going to take that $5,000 or 10% of your take-home income, and you're going to save it. Now, the savings, of course, is then intended to be reinvested when you find a great investment where you can earn a reasonable return. Now, over this example, I'd like to start with a 5% return on investment, which is extremely easy to find with very little risk if you do your homework. And if I were to calculate this, you'll see that over 30 years, a $5,000 contribution each year, if you kept it at $5,000, you would end up with $348,000 in future value. Not bad, at only $400 and change per month. Now, let's go ahead and start considering some of these bigger numbers because, of course, if you're following the 3 steps, you're continuing to increase your earning power and you're making more every single year. So once you're earning north of $50,000 but less than $199,000 or less than $200,000 per year, you should actually be saving 15% of that, which is going to range between $7,500 on the low end at $50,000 all the way up to $30,000 per year, which is 15% of $200,000 in income. So let's go ahead and take that $7,500 and see what that could generate for us in future value at a 5% interest rate over that same 30-year term. And we can see over $500,000 in future value starting with just a $7,500 annual contribution. Now, if you were earning upwards of $199,999 per year and you're saving just under that $30,000 amount and you're contributing that to your 5% interest rate, interest-bearing account each year, you can see that you're now seeing over $2 million in future value. And that's if you obviously continue down this same path for all 30 years. Your goal should be continuing to build. If you had $2.1 million to invest, you would obviously be generating substantial income as well over that period of time if you're buying income-producing assets. So it should be easier and easier for you to earn $200,000 and above beyond that first year. It shouldn't get harder. So if you're now making over $200,000 but you're making less than $500,000, you're going to be saving for investment reasons between $50,000 per year at 25% savings rate up to $125,000 per year if you're making all the way up to that $499,999. Okay, so let's plug those two numbers in here just to see how exciting this can get when you start to really see some of these efforts grow. We've got $50,000 annual contribution over 30 years with just a 5% ROI, and you can see that that number now grows to almost $3.5 million. And if you're now generating as much as $499,999 at a 25% savings rate Well, now we're at $125,000 per year contributed to this investment, and the compound interest at 5% is going to end up putting you at $8.7 million. Now, Grant Cardone, a really well-known social media superstar, badass entrepreneur, talks about having no less than $10 million in plans for your future. If you are not planning for at least $10 million and above, you will likely not have enough to survive, depending on your age. Okay, so let's take a look at what that would mean if you were able to earn over $500,000 per year. Okay, $500,000 up to a $2 million income is going to produce for you obviously a 35% savings bracket. Okay, so we're going to then increase the ratio of how much we're setting aside for investing into income producing assets. And at 35% with just a $500,000 starting point each year in income, we're looking at $175,000 of that $500,000 being set aside. And if you're all the way up into that $2 million or $1.99 million income level at 35%, you could be setting aside as much as $700,000. So let's start at $175,000 per year at just a 5% level. We go ahead and recalculate, and we're now at $12.2 million in future value. 30 years, folks. 30 years seems like forever until you realize that 65-year-olds will probably see 30 years. They can if they are healthy. So it's important, obviously, that we prepare for a long future, a decades-long future, regardless of where we're starting out. And if we had $700,000 set aside each year for savings at this same 5% level, we're now at $48 million, almost $50 million in future value. That means if you're 35 years old and you start this process, and within 10 years, you build out a system, a program, a product, or a service that you're able to sell and generate $2 million or in that ballpark, you could easily end up with $48 million, almost $50 million in future value by the time you're 70 years old. Okay, and this is at a 5% increase, folks. Most of what we create increases in value substantially more than this number. Okay, it's not unusual for us to see 100% growth in just 1 year's time. Let's go ahead and just put in here another realistic increase, say just 8% interest returns. 8% is completely realistic. You could be a private money lender. You could lend to real estate investors. You can secure that note against the collateral of the real estate and be fairly safe by doing so and demand 8% returns all day long. At a $700,000 level, which is where that $2 million income point puts a 35% savings rate, you would be at $85 million. That's the difference between that 3% change. Let's go all the way back down to just that $5,000 annual contribution over 30 years with 8%. Okay, remember, originally with 5%, that number was sitting at $348,800. With 8%, that number now becomes $611,000. That's the power of compound interest, my friend, is the number almost doubled. And you can see here that as that continues to increase, right, where let's say you're making $100,000 per year, at the current savings rate under this format, you would be setting aside 15% of your take home, which would be $15,000 per year with a $100,000 starting take home income amount. And at that same 8%, you could have $1.8 million in future value over just that 30-year period of time. So you can see how the framework that we showcased that Dan Lok teaches regarding ratios and how to budget to create wealth can impact you so substantially, because this number is based on zero growth. As you continue to grow those high income skills and turn them into scalable businesses and scalable profit centers that ultimately earn you more each and every year, these numbers become small over time. All right, guys, so those that understand the concept of the banking rules here and the 1% banking mistake can take active steps every single day in order to optimize and find their way into a very rewarding future. But just know that for an airplane to hit its target, it requires a sophisticated computer system. It requires a great pilot that can constantly evaluate incoming information, and then of course, make necessary corrections in order to keep everything on course. And similarly, keeping your finances on course and running as efficiently as possible requires ongoing analysis and constant corrections. And this means really having a responsive and accurate navigation system for your finances. It's vital. Here at VIP Financial Education, we do help our coaching members stay on course by uncovering these 1-degree mistakes. Usually there's small adjustments that need to be made that are causing you to fall well short of your target. We just suggest ways of getting back on track and avoiding mistakes moving forward. If you haven't already done so, be sure to claim your free coaching session. Those are scheduling out to next fall at the time this video has been made. If you're looking at taking your finances seriously, if you understand how much a 1-degree mistake can cost you, if you understand how much a 10% correction to your cash flow, how much that can impact your future, and you're ready to dive in, then make sure you claim one of our current discounted vacancies. Those vacancies are only going to be good until the end of December. January 1st, prices are going up, and they're going up fairly substantially. We'll be cutting another video here before the end of the year that talks about the changes of the prices so you guys have all the specifics, but we will also include a link in the description below talking about current prices and the discount that you could claim now if you take advantage. So go to freecoachingcalendar.com and select your preferred path. Decide which one is going to keep you as in line with the direction you want to be going as possible. I say let's fly to success together here, friends. All right, guys, my team just sent me notice here for our next $25 Amazon gift card winner. Hopefully that person will be tuning into today's video. And that is a key to making sure that you guys are able to claim your prize, because if you don't see the next video where we actually call your name, well, then you may not actually get the $25. So make sure you're watching the future videos in order to see your name called. We've given away thousands of dollars in prizes over the course of this year. Today's prize is going to Chris Brownwell. Congratulations, Chris. Let's see what Chris had to say. So the team selected his comment. It came in on, it looks like my live proposal, the surprise proposal I did with Kellyanne over the holiday in Hawaii. Unbelievable experience. Can't be happier to be a newly engaged man. It took 40 years to issue my very first proposal, and it'll be the last. So Chris says, new to the channel, loving it, came across this video and just had to leave a comment. Congrats, Matthew and Kellyanne. Even spelled her name correctly. Great job. What a beautiful video. Thank you for sharing this special moment with all of us. Truly inspiring. Hope you both enjoy your time in Hawaii. Chris, thank you so much. You know, having that experience with you guys as a group, that was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I couldn't be more grateful to have had you guys there commenting and encouraging me while I was hyperventilating. So thank you for that. And Chris, congratulations. I'm so glad we were able to bring you along on that experience. And now we're even going to reward you further. We can't be the only ones out there having fun. So you take this $25, you treat yourself to something nice here this holiday. And guys, make sure you become a subscriber and leave comments in order to be the next winner of our giveaway.